And now it's time for Guerilla Roundup. They'll let you know what happened overnight when things transpire whilst you sleep. Right there in the loop you keep.
Welcome to the first of this summer's editions of Guerilla Roundup. We'll be summarising each day's play in the test series that are on this year and giving you a feel for what went on during the day as we discuss the events. And joining me today for the first time is Dave Sihra, who's a Dublin man, but somehow or other he's managed to land himself into Athens for a few months, which is a great place to be watching cricket from. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you very much, Jez. Thanks for having me on.
Now, your first task, whether you like it or not, is to have 90 seconds to summarize the events today. So go.
I'm not going to do it, but I can always try. I won't start the clock just yet. But it turns so the day it was a very challenging day for Ireland. I think there's no two ways about that. England finished at 140 for 1 after 21 overs, so looking at 7 and over. Having bowled out Ireland for 172, Ben Stokes been winning the toss and bowling first. But really, finally, we get to talk about some actual cricket. I think we've had a lot of talking, not quite a phony war, but with a very long IPL. We had Owen Morgan ringing the bell. We finally had some Test cricket to talk about in terms of leaving all the other issues with Josh Little and Cricket Ireland. PJ Moore, Andy Balbirnie, and Harry Tector both they all went fairly quickly. PJ Moore walking across the stumps and going at LBW to Stuart Broad. Stuart Broad's seen many things in his time as an England bowler, and sure he's seen this off stump guard come in, and I'm sure he's going to see it when it finishes. PJ Moore just couldn't get any bat on this the newfangled off stump guard. James McCullum, not to be confused with Brendan McCullum. James McCullum got stuck in, very much so. 36 off 108, strike rate of 33. Aided and abetted by Paul Stirling. Paul Stirling going at a fair click, 30 off 35, but then just miscuing it off Jack Leach. Jack Leach finished with 3 wickets. Stuart Broad getting a fifer. We had some interesting innings from Lorcan Tucker. We had Curtis Camphor, who dug in, as he has tended to do, as he has wanted to do. And we had Andy McBride, who showed his stuff. We had the debutant, Josh Tongue, who showed what he is capable of, which is quite a bit. I mean, he's a bit raw. His pace looked like it was a bit up and down, but I'm sure that will come with time. But he's a very exciting prospect for the Ashes coming up. So Ireland did quite well. I mean, that's a very funny thing to say, but we saw a lot of fight in the circumstances of what we saw, which is what we're usual to see from Ireland. And of course, we saw some cable knit jumpers, which is what we came here to see. So it was good to see. But then this was then Ireland's turn with the ball, and we had Mark Adair opening the bowling with Graham Hume, and with Fiona Hand coming in as first support. But then we got to see, of course, what happens when you come in at this level, and they were very much punished for erring in line and length, punished by Crawley and Ben Duckett, and that is what England will do. That is what they will do under Bazball. But Fiona Hand eventually got a bit of luck when Crawley chipped one back, and Fiona Hand managed to get a hand to it, and then his other hand, and he got both hands to it, and he got his first Test wicket, him making his Test debut today. There was a bit of luck just before that with Mark Adair getting a few good deliveries to Crawley, and Crawley just inside edging them for 4. Crawley doing very well for getting to 47, I believe. So yeah, it was very tough going for the Ireland bowlers, and they were punished. I think looking forward, there's going to be a lot will hinge on Andy McBride, who's very good at tying up an end, who's very good at being a defensive bowling option. Perhaps if Curtis Camphor can work in his lengths, which he didn't do towards the end of the day. And then they can rotate around that, perhaps around who's getting the ball to swing and who's getting it to jag, who's getting any work with that Dukes, because it seemed like the bowlers were struggling to get any sort of consistency and getting any sort of movement. It's suppose it was a tough day. It was a very challenging day, but it's I suppose if you look at the history of not the history, but I mean, looking back at some of the opening tests we have at the summer, who's been invited? I've seen Bangladesh come over in before that 2005 Ashes series. We've seen New Zealand come over. We've seen West Indies. We've seen so many sides come over and struggle in that first test, in that first series, before you get the main bread and butter of the main series later on in the summer. Usually we see cold conditions, but today was a lovely day in Lords with some lovely test cricket, albeit of varying quality. So I mean, there is that to keep in mind in terms of Ireland's performance and Ireland's quality. But I've felt this largely before Ireland went on tour to Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, and that is that this is good. It can only be good in terms. This is Ireland. This is where they're at, and this is seeing where they're at. It's seeing where Cricket Ireland are at. It's seeing how everything runs. It's putting Ireland on the big stage. You are performing on the biggest stage, and that there was a bit of that from Heinrich Milan in the pre-match post press conference. So this is Ireland performing on the biggest stage. George Dockrell had said a little bit before they left on their Asia tour that for like we saw flashes of it when Ireland batted, is that they're a very promising group of cricketers, capable of so much. But today was a very, very difficult day. We all wanted to see Josh Little playing, but somehow I don't think Josh Little would have scored 50, and I don't think he would have taken 5 wickets. Perhaps Tim Murtagh.
Well, Tim Murtagh, I mean, wouldn't it have been nice? But thank you for that summary. It's really nice to get an Irish perspective from someone who feels what's going on for the Ireland team and understands the history behind it. Just from my perspective, as basically a neutral, although my mother was from Cork,
Oh,
it seemed to me that there was a degree of arrogance in the English team, maybe justifiable, I don't know, in their way of playing the game. For example, I felt very sorry for Josh Tongue on debut, being told by Stokes he had to bowl really short the whole time. Didn't get a chance to actually show his talent. But obviously, they wanted to see what he's like bowling short in preparation for the Ashes. And, I get that they want to know where they're going to be at, but I would have thought the first day of this test was really about just establishing dominance without playing around. So yeah, I felt some discomfort in relation to that. But I also felt that, notwithstanding the preparation Ireland had at Chelmsford last week, where a lot of runs were scored, there was a sense of unpreparedness around particularly the early batters. That somehow, for example, who was it who was out second ball, coming down the wicket?
Harry Tector, was it?
Harry Tector, yeah. I mean, yeah, we've been watching the IPL for the last couple of months. That would be entirely understandable in an IPL game. But
Yeah.
in a test match at Lords, when you're up against it, to be doing that is madness.
Well, Harry
Already
Tector is he's a
19
very
for 2.
yeah. He's a very confident man at the moment, I suppose, being at 7 in the world. Maybe some of that is factored in that it's been very easy in a way for Harry Tector. If he's not getting runs in ODIs, at least he's gotten starts. He did okay. I think he showed himself up quite well on the Asia tour. But I suppose this is Test cricket.
Now, yeah, it seems to me there's a big contrast because the last time I saw them, I couldn't watch the games in Sri Lanka because they weren't covered here. But watching the game in Bangladesh, the second innings Ireland had, they really showed a lot of grit and fight. And I thought this is a really good sign. I saw bugger all of that today.
Yeah, it's one thing I've thought about as in, well, we've got 4 days, 3 more days, but there is something I think we see these shorter series now. We see 2-match test series, we see 3-match test series where there's not really getting in much into the meat and bones, and I think there was something in that Bangladesh match where they finally came into it, and they were going to show that fight at some point. Now, admittedly, the opposition will tire, and eventually you will get that opportunity.
Mm.
We saw that in the second Sri Lanka test, where they got to show a much better account of themselves with the bat. We of course want to see a much better showing in the second innings from Ireland, but uh, it's kind of it remains to be seen. I think when you get these 2-match test series, 3-match test series, 1 match, 4 days, how much meat can you actually get into? Can you show a better version of yourself? Well, Ireland will definitely have to in the next few days.
Yeah.
But I feel like there is that chance for them, very much that chance for them to do that, to fight back.
Well, let's hope so. Stuart Broad had 5 for 51. Did he bowl that well?
He seemed to do okay. I mean, that's the beauty of Broad, I guess. So the beauty of having that experience and all that skill behind you is that perhaps not quite being in fifth gear, you can still do it. Yeah, he did reasonably well. I mean, did he blow them away? I'm not quite sure. Did Ireland gift? Possibly, yeah.
Yeah. And of course, considerable controversy over who should be keeping wicket for England. Bairstow's performance behind the stumps give you any pause for thought?
No, he seemed to do okay. I mean, um, I suppose the less you hear from a keeper, possibly the better day they've had. The less you hear from Bairstow, probably the better. The less well, just as long as he doesn't play golf or football. Um, yeah, no, he
Indeed.
seemed to do okay. Well, we'll obviously, from an Irish perspective, hopefully we don't hear too much from him with the bat. We'll
Yeah.
leave it at that.
Now, much to the surprise of many, Zach Crawley managed to make 56 off 45 balls. Um, we talked about Ireland gifting wickets. I got to say that from where I was watching, Ireland's lines and lengths were very, very disappointing. And
Yeah, they were.
notwithstanding the uh, the notoriety of England and their speed batting, they really didn't have to take a lot of risks. Zach Crawley had a lot of luck. He had 19 runs between wicketkeeper and short, basically leg slip through French cuts. But all the same, there were a lot of runs on offer. Without any risks having to be taken by them, it seemed to me, because of the basically wayward Irish bowling, I think.
Yeah, it was quite difficult. I think that's definitely the weaker element at the moment. If you're to talk about the middle order being this one of the stronger elements, I'd say the bowling department is one of the weaker elements. But then at the same time, Mark Adair's done his time. He's done his time in Lords. He's done his time.
Mm. Well, there seemed to be a common view that he wasn't bowling anything like as well as he had previously. I mean, is he past his prime or is he tired? Um, what was your view of his bowling?
It's hard to tell really with that bottom performance. That was obviously very, very poor. Mark Adair's been there and he's done that in a lot of ways. There's not too much showing his legs. There's not too much showing that it looks like he's tired. He bowled admirably in Essex on a very flat pitch, admittedly for Essex, not for Ireland. He did okay. He should know better. You could see in his second spell he got it moving a bit more. But that was quite poor. From a test debutant from Fionn Hand, someone very limited first class experience, you could possibly say, well, like, look, he's doing this in the biggest stage, a stage he doesn't know. But even from Graham Hume looked like he was playing back in Sri Lanka. He looked like he was struggling uphill.
Yeah.
But that was quite poor in terms of they needed to get that breakthrough. But what I did like a little bit from Hume was from Fionn Hand, sorry, was that Fionn Hand seemed to be willing to put it up for the drive and seemed to be willing to, we need a wicket here. That's
Yes.
it. That's what
Yeah.
we're going for. Whereas you could see Hume being a little bit short, Mark Adair being a little bit short, and you're just not going to get anything
No.
with the Duke's ball.
No, especially on a wicket like this, which was increasingly friendly as the day wore on. There was a bit of nip early in the morning, but by lunchtime, that any sign of that had gone,
Yeah,
I would say.
yeah.
Um, Somebody we only touched on in your summary was James McCollum opening, making 36. I thought he looked really promising, and he played a couple of beautiful shots actually while he was
He did, he
doing
did.
that.
Yeah. Technique looked pretty good. He struggled a bit in Sri Lanka. I think there was a bit of discussion about this when I was in comms. I felt, and you could see it. They were doing the replays. You could tell that everybody had kind of picked up on it. It was that he was very much stuck to the crease, couldn't really move his legs, wasn't getting his weight forward. And that looks to really have been fixed here, or at least he enjoys a bit more pace in the ball. So yeah, he looked like a very good hand. It's interesting to see Paul Sterling going at the rate that he did, which Paul Sterling will go at the rate that he does.
Yeah,
But then McCullum going at such a slow rate. But I guess he's the steady hand, perhaps that Ireland need. But it just shows a little bit about look, whether any team is going to try and compete with England on run rates, whether that's a wise thing or not. I definitely feel like Ireland have taken an approach of just to go at it a bit. Not to say that they're going to try and reinvent the wheel, but that they feel there's no point in going into your shell. There's no point in getting skittled. There's no
yeah,
point in putting yourself under pressure.
yeah. Well, I mean, they scored it over three and over for the
Yeah,
innings, which
yeah,
isn't bad in the circumstances.
yeah.
Particularly as they were sort of gutted losing Balbirnie and Tector for ducks in the same
Mm,
over, and being 19 for three at that stage, which was,
yeah,
you know, you'd understand taking a defensive attitude from there, but
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think that's in Paul Sterling's DNA, is it?
No, no, certainly not.
So, uh, your highlight of the day?
Highlight of the day. I mean, Fionn Hand carries with him the Fionn Hand Appreciation Society. I think my highlight would obviously be Fionn Hand getting that catch. He's you could see it. He cut through Duckett with his first delivery, and you could tell he's kind of a bit of a bit of a whoosh. He kind of felt like, geez, this Test cricket, this isn't too bad. Then of course he got pummeled the next 2-3 deliveries. And you could see he enjoyed that Test wicket. So I mean, that was a great moment.
Excellent.
Um, yeah, it was a
Yeah,
great moment.
yeah, because it looked like he was going to drop it, coming
Yeah,
back at his stomach, and then he somehow managed to reach out his left arm and grab it before it hit the floor. So that,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it was ended up being a very good catch. Um, any memorable moments apart from that?
Memorable moments. It was great to see Ireland fight like they do. That's what they will always do. Um, that was about it. If we're to talk about highlights, we're talking about Fionn Hand's catch. We're talking about the fight back from Curtis Camphor. But it's been a pretty grueling day. It's been pretty tough.
Yeah,
But we've
yeah.
had a few of those.
Well, I
Uh,
mean, Guerilla Hendo said towards the end of the day, he said, to be honest, this is getting a bit dull. And I sort of, you know, I sort of get that in that there wasn't a sense of challenge involved at that
yeah,
stage. The feeling is it's pretty much all over, and unless something dramatic happens tomorrow morning, uh,
there's been some pretty tough days. I mean, we've had Ireland's had some good days, of course, not so many red ball days, but I remember I was thinking back to the first test match. The Guerilla Cricket, of course, covered Ireland's first test match in
yes, yes,
Malahide. And I was there. The only day I was there was I think it would have been the third or fourth day where Ireland completely capitulated after the
yes,
Pakistani first innings.
yeah,
Completely capitulated. We followed on. Kevin O'Brien came in, scored a brilliant century, aided by Tyrone Kane, possibly, and made a fist out of it, made a match out of it. But I remember Mohammed Amir coming in and possibly Shadab Khan, and it just yeah, that was tough. It was pretty brutal. um Boring, dull mightn't quite be the word when Mohammed Amir is getting through the opposition, but it was a tough day. And I mean, there will be tough days, and
yep.
hopefully tomorrow will be slightly different.
Well, let's hope so. Let's hope the bowlers have a bit more zip in their step. I must say we haven't mentioned Ben Duckett and Ollie Pope. Both of whom
No,
looked very comfortable, actually. Zach Crawley's 56 wasn't a pretty sight. Ben Duckett, on the other hand, batted very competently for his 56.
he did indeed. Yeah, they kept trying to get it full, and he at least even full on his pads because he obviously plays a lot of stuff off the back foot. And even then, well, obviously he's in the almost in the form of his life. He's very, very capable batter. He used to talk about openers having sticky, ugly opening innings. Crawley does sticky, fast 50s, but that's apparently what he's there for. So I suppose as long as he's not getting ducks, it's all good to McCullum and Stokes.
Yeah, well, uh, it's probably enough to make sure he's selected for the first Ashes test, which, from an Australian
Yeah,
perspective, I'm quite happy about.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
um, I normally at this stage we do the tweet of the day and the gorilla of the day. I've been thinking about that. It's the first day back after a long layoff, and
Hmm.
I just want to nominate all the gorillas and all our tweeters um, for just being here. It's so great to have everybody back on board and see so many familiar names popping up on the tweet line and on YouTube. So we might do it tomorrow, but today we're just going to nominate all gorillas and all tweeters as gorillas and tweeters of the day, and save me from having to create any favorites. Um, so on that, I'd like to say thank you very much. Despite the Power Cup being able to come back and complete this. If you wonder why there's a slight jerk in the middle of the recording, because Dave lost his power halfway through, and we had to do a bit of a patch in the middle. We'll
It's
be back.
happens for you.
I'll be back with you with somebody with a summary of tomorrow night. In the meantime, if you like this, please give it a like, share it, spread the word around. And if you'd like to support us, please consider making a donation, however small, through patreon.com/gorilla cricket. We appreciate your support. And if you've got something to say, some reaction, please put a comment below this video. We'd love to hear from you. And we promise to respond to you if you're looking for a response. Alternatively, you can just tweet us at Gorilla Cricket on Twitter. So that's it for tonight, and we'll be with you tomorrow night. Thanks very much. Night.
Cheers.
And now it's time for Guerilla Roundup. They'll let you know